Open loops. Do, do. Open loops. Open loops. Open loops. Open loops. You must listen to the open loops, a theme park for absurd beliefs and systems of integration between the mind and the creative spirit. Open loops.
Today on Open Loops, we have a returning guest that I loved having on the first time. It was just non-stop mind-bending and mind-blowing going on, and everywhere this guy goes, that just seems to be the MO of Aage Nost. Coming back on, for those that are new to Aage, he was born on a farm in Norway, came to the U.S. at the age of 25 to become a professional pilot, and he did so, and in a partnership, he owned a flight school, air taxi, and air carrier, and then after retiring from flying, he started to get into the mind a lot deeper. He taught with the Zox Pro Mind Development course, which is one of the coolest accelerated learning courses. We talked a bit about that last time. As well as is a hypnotist. He's an author of several books. I've got a copy of one of them right here. If you can see it, I know a little blurry, but Spiritual Science. Very cool stuff. He's was a talk show host for 6 years and a radio talk show co-host on Broadcast Team Alpha. He's been teaching classes on self-hypnosis, meditation, psychic abilities, astral travel, and universal success principles. And look, I mean, you've heard him talk about reverse aging before. He's on the forefront of that. He talks about the science of the super consciousness, and as well as presenting scientific evidence that we live in the self-aware, mind-created computer simulation. I mean, are you not mind blown already? Today, we're going to talk to him about time travel, one of my favorite topics. Aage, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yes, you are always a great guest. And, time travel seems to be in right now. I was saying to you before the show that a lot of people are asking you about it. Yeah, I've seen you do a few shows. You've been on the radio. You've been on many different podcasts, other forums, talking about it. I mean, did this just come out of the blue? Do people have the bug right now? Do they want to get out of this time period for some reason? I mean, what do you think it is?
I don't know. There seemed to be an interest, and I think I got quite a few requests for talk on it after I was on Coast to Coast and talked about it. Maybe the word got out or something, so they contacted me, and I'm glad you contacted me too, because I've never met a microphone I didn't like, so I'll be here.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, I mean, where did, well, I guess I'm curious. I know we've spoken a little bit about your specific time travel experiences, but did you always think about time travel growing up? I mean, where in your journey of studying the mind does time travel fit in, Aage?
That was not on the forefront for me until probably around 1990, I don't know, 3 or something like that, because I came over from Europe and I flew for a living for 23 years. And during that time, I had very little spare time to do things like this
Yeah.
because I was a total workaholic. And for you workaholics out there, quit it. It's going to cost you. And it did.
Mm.
I burned out, so I quit because I found myself sitting in the cockpit with the autopilot flying the airplane and I was reading a book. That's no good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I did the right thing. I quit flying. And now I think it was about 1992, 93, something like that. I got introduced to Stephen Gibbs by a friend in Omaha. And he said that he had made a time travel device and he had some incredible experiences with it. And that sounded interesting. So I went and met with him and we had a 4-hour dinner.
Wow.
That was very interesting. He told me a lot of stories. And of course, when you hear people talking about, if I now walk out on the street and start talking to people about time travel, their eyes will roll back in the head and they walk off on you.
Yes.
They just don't get it because they're operating from old science. If I can't see it, if I can't feel it, if I can't smell it or taste it or throw it in the air and shoot holes in it, it doesn't exist. Well, it's not that way anymore because now we have quantum mechanics and there is absolutely explained through repeatable experiments that we live in a mind-created universe. And in fact, this universe does not even exist until we observe it or interact with it. There was a theoretical physicist back in the 1960s or so, and he said, we cannot imagine a universe even existing unless we observe it. So we have to be engaging in this universe that we created with our mind. Now, one more thing about that is that if we create everything around us with our mind, why don't we create good stuff instead of the garbage that happens? And my brother-in-law keep telling us that I'm stupid for reading books like this. No. We can do that, and maybe later in the show I can exactly tell you how, because I write about that in this book. I write very much how you can do that, and also I teach you how to use your mind in ways you normally would think would be impossible.
Wow.
But for the time travel part of it, there is all kinds of evidence, repeatable experiments. In fact, there is a guy over in Germany, a scientist. His name is Helmut Schmidt. How much more German can you get than that?
Yes.
And he did experiments where he proved that you even can go back in time and correct the past. Now, that one is hard to wrap our head around, but he did it. And we can also create our future right now and place let me back up on that one. There is a spiritual language or a quantum language. It's not one of words. It's one of intention, vivid colorful images, emotion, love, and a few other things. If you know what you want, half the people don't even know that. They just live day to day. And if you know what you want, create mental images of it. And then love it. Feel yourself in it, doing it with it. And now just create an emotion of being with it or doing it. Then place that bubble of mental, or should I say conscious creation at a time-coded event in the future. Now, let's forget the calendar. It's worthless. But a time-coded event like Christmas party, New Year's party, birthday party, something like that in the future. And then go back and forth and visit that creation every day. Now you are laying down a tractor strings to it. And when you go back and forth, you solidify that path to the thing in the future. So you get drawn up this timeline you have created to it. And when the time catches up with that New Year's Eve party, you walk into it and it is yours. I've done that several times, and I tell you, this works. This way, you are actually time traveling and bringing yourself up a timeline to something that you want instead of what the government wants for you or anybody else wants for you. Because if you don't create something for yourself, other people will be creating it for you, and you may not like it.
Yeah. Aage, I mean, this is such a fascinating... It's interesting, when I started researching time travel in a serious way, there were two schools of thought, and I'm sure I know you can speak to both. There's more of the traditional secret space program. We figured out how to wrap a Tesla coil and build a machine, and the government's been hiding that. There's a very technological approach, it seems. And then there's more of the consciousness approach, which is more of Stephen Gibbs, people talk about time travel. I mean, I've seen it even in some of the Facebook groups that are out there about time travel. There are two schools. People go, it's either astral or it's technological. And I think we are drawn to the technological. But it seems to me that Stephen Gibbs' device and the device you have is a fusion of both of those things in a way. It's the technical and the mind.
Yes.
You know, I'm curious, what is your... Could you explain that a little bit?
Okay, let me answer all three of those.
Okay, sure.
Let me first go with even Michio Kaku says we know how to create a time machine. We just don't have the fuel for it. And there are, for those of nuts and bolts people out there, go to a news source, very credible news source, except for the political part of it. Go to BBC television, actually bbc.com/news/July 11, 2018, and read the article. They're talking to scientists, and they explain very clearly, we know how to make a time machine, but we just can't do it. It would not work in our society. And think about it, though. If everybody knew this is possible and they built themselves a time machine, and you start messing with the past, you screw up the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then we have mental or consciousness time travel that don't need the machine at all, which that time travel device that I have, I'm going to show you later on in the show. So folks, don't go anywhere. You're going to want to see this. And the mental or consciousness time travel is probably more powerful.
Yes.
And the only big difference there, you don't necessarily take the physical body with you. You go with consciousness to a predetermined time. You see, you interact, you observe, and you come back with a detailed memory of it. There is somewhat similar, as maybe there are other methods out there, like psychic abilities can tap into some of that. Or there may be, remote viewing can do some of that. But I have never seen really, I know there are people out there doing it, and they're good at it, but the majority of people aren't. In fact, we did some experiments on the mastermind with it, and We had some really close ones, but the majority of them were not close. So that is another way to do it. And then there is a combination of the two of them. That is what Stephen Gibbs have created. Though there are some people there that using his machine, I'm calling it machine, it really isn't, because there are no moving parts. There's just a device. And there are people that they're making it work. And we know that because some of them are missing and they never showed up anywhere afterwards.
Whoa.
And, yeah.
I want to know about that. That's crazy. Yeah. What?
But to explain my experience with that is I got the machine, the device. I started experimenting with it and I couldn't get anything done. I was every day for at least a month and nothing happened. Until I started manipulating the brainwave pattern. I started lowering the brainwave pattern in a meditative state all the way down to the bottom of the alpha range around 7.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing things. And I started observing things. And I've seen quite a few things. But only when I was able to lower the brainwave pattern down to about 7. There's this magic number 7.4, am I told, that is somewhat of an opening of a gate into the interdimensional arena between physical and higher vibrations. It's in between where you can move back and forth and then pop out in one of them. So that worked for me. But I did mention there was somebody missing.
Yeah.
In that 4-hour dinner that I had with Stephen Gibbs, he told me several stories about people that are missing. One of them was a young man going to college, living at home with his parents, and he bought one of the machines. He got it home, took it up to his bedroom, started experimenting with it, and in the evening, his mom went up there to get him down for dinner, and he wasn't there, so she didn't worry too much. She figured he, had gone out with friends or something. And next morning, he wasn't there, so she didn't worry too much because she figured, he got drunk and stayed overnight, But then again, she found out that he wasn't at school either. So now she got a little worried about, what may have happened. So another day, they ended up filing a missing persons report with the police. Wow. The police came out and they told him the story, and, they were trying not to laugh at her. And then they went up to the room, and there is the black box with the time chip in it, sitting in the middle of the bed. The time coil is next to it, and the electromagnet next to that, sitting in the middle of the bed, plugged in the wall. And
oh no,
there's an owner's manual for the machine, looking like this. That was laying next to the device, and of course the police didn't believe any of this, so they start asking the parents questions, did you kill him?
Right.
The parents became a target. And that's what police do. They think everybody's a crook. And now their parents, they structure their story. So the police did their investigation and nothing came up. So that young man, several years later, had not shown up anywhere in that time. That's because by the time we had the dinner with Stephen, then there was several years earlier that this happened, and he talked to the parents ever so often because he wanted to know if the kid showed up, and no, he never did. I have a kind of a hypothesis on how this could have happened.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
That is that he did something with the mind that interfaced with the device, so he was able to physically go somewhere where he left the device behind. He did not have the device to bring him back, and he didn't know how.
Oh, man.
If he went back, let's say for shits and giggles, that he says, hey, I want to go back to the time when they built the pyramids in Egypt. If he did that, you know, there aren't too many electric sockets in old Egypt. So
Right.
he wouldn't know how to get back. Or he could have had something happen as part of the, he could have ended up in the future, which is unlikely, because then sooner or later we may discover that. But I guess anything is up for grabs of what may have happened to him.
Yeah. Why do you think it worked for him? I mean, you said there was some kind of interference. I'm trying to read between the lines. Do we think he maybe was on drugs and that opened him up to something? Like, why was he at this? What level of consciousness could he have been at?
I never thought of that. Drugs. That could have helped the situation, because people that has done some of those things, they've seen some amazing things, interdimensional things.
Yeah.
I never tried that, but I know there are people that I've talked to say, yeah, they could see other worlds, they see other beings, they see phenomenal lights, and they see all kinds of things.
Yeah, very interesting. Before we get into how it works a little more, I wanted to go back to the 4-hour dinner with this guy, because I just imagine if you're going, I don't really know what this guy's claiming, and then by the end of the 4 hours you're like, okay, I want to try this. I know there's a backstory. I believe there were extraterrestrials involved that dropped off the device to steal. Like, did he get into that at all? And you can correct the story, but I believe that's how he got to the device from ETs.
Yeah, he was never really clear on that.
Interesting.
Though he indicated that he had some help, but he was also a very religious man, kind of borderline Christian fanatic.
Oh, wow.
So when it came to the alien part of it, I don't think he was actually open to that. He was open to angelic beings, which may have been the aliens.
Right.
So he did have some help in perfecting the time chip. He had that done. That was back in the 70s. He had done that.
Wow.
And that was, as far as I know, was never changed. It was just kept, because he had the circuitry and everything. He had some help put that together, because he did say that.
Yeah. You know, Aage, I remember, we talked about this before the show too, that you gave me Steven's name. I asked you briefly about time travel the first time you were on Open Loops. You gave me Steven's name. You even gave me his contact info, because on the internet, his phone number was just out there and available to people for years. And I really wanted to get him on. And I believe he passed about a year or so ago. But I don't know if you've ever talked to anybody else that knew him well, but I've been thinking forever that it would be cool to do a panel of people that were close to him that knew this. I mean, I truly feel you are one of the few people publicly speaking about this device that, actually spent time with the guy. Have you met anybody else, or is it really just you out there that has been promoting this man's work?
Actually, about 3 weeks ago, I got introduced to a lady in California that bought the device.
Oh, wow.
And but she never got anything done with it, because she was kind of probably more looking at it as a novelty piece and practice a little bit, but gave up.
Yeah.
But I could probably help you put a panel like that together, because I think there's other people that had, and I know just a person to talk to about, because Patricia Ress in Omaha has written over 100 books.
Yes.
About 10 or 11 of them on time travel. And she's talked to people that has done it. that could be an interesting panel.
I would love it. We can talk about that after the show. I just think this guy who somehow figured out this machine deserves a kind of proper tribute. I don't know. Especially with all these experiences. But
Yeah.
to go back to the 4-hour conversation. Now, you've explained to me your understanding of the mind and the way it intersects with quantum physics and whatnot. When you were at that dinner, I mean, do you think that Steven was explaining that's how it worked to you, or is that something you had to put together? What was his initial understanding of the machine and the way it intersected with the mind? And then I'm curious how that evolved.
He had religion in the middle of everything he said.
Got
And he
it.
said, you got to be careful, he said, what you think about when you put the device on. I'll show you here in a bit. There's a time coil you put around your head. And you got to watch your thoughts, he says, because if you start thinking about negative things and really bad stuff, he says, you could get, he called it, pulled into a hell region where you could see some really nasty stuff and be right in the middle of it.
Oh, wow.
Because he said that there were people that have had that happen, and then they just broke off the whole thing and came back.
Wow. How often is it actual physical locations in time versus kind of these, I don't know, it almost sounds like a metaphysical manifestation of what hell might be in someone's consciousness that they're going to for a little bit and then coming back.
Well, it's kind of obvious, actually, because in a mind-created universe, hell is also mind-created.
That's true. That's a good point.
You're created, and hell, their hell is within this universe since we created here. So you think yourself to hell, and you can think yourself out of there by saying, I want to go home. I'm going home.
Yeah.
And you just break it off, and because you are in charge, your mind is in charge in your mind-created universe. Same thing later on, let's say 275 years from now, when you drop the body and die physically. If someone were to find themselves in a place that looked like hell, you can also think yourself out of there. Two ways. Says, I want to go home. Or there is, for religious people, ask for forgiveness. And these are people that have had near-death experiences, and they've done this, and they have come out of there. And that ask for forgiveness for what brought them there, or ask for, in their mind, Jesus to come and help them. So there are other things. These are real concepts that people that have had near-death experiences have experienced this particular thing. 99% of them have wonderful experiences, but there is this small smidget of percentage of people that had negative experiences in near-death experiences.
Oh. Yeah, no, that's a good point. You do often hear it is definitely biased towards the positive ones. Yeah, Proof of Heaven and all those books out there that are very popular. I'd be curious about the hellish ones. That would be interesting. I don't know. Ooh, that would be fascinating.
Hey, don't be too curious. You don't want to go there.
That's true. That's low vibration. That's low vibration. Okay, yeah. So. You're playing with this device, you're getting your brain into alpha, the low end, and then what happens?
Well, you have to, when you start it out, you got to decide before you even go and do it, decide what you're going to do and where you're going to go, what you want to see, map out your plan, kind of like going on vacation. You know what you're going to do. You just don't know all the details.
Yeah.
So now, let's say that you wanted to go 2 years down the road and see what's going on. Put yourself in a position where, in a place where you could observe a lot of the things that is going on, not just locally, but maybe you have access to other things. And then put the device on, lower the brainwave pattern into the bottom of the alpha range. And this will be better actually explained while I demonstrate the machine. But you put the magnet against your solar plexus and go into a meditative state. And then just wait. And whatever happens will most likely be what you have predetermined as a destination. And I haven't always done that. One time I found myself walking down the street, and that was in the early days. All the people came this way, I was going that way. And when I walked down the street, I made eye contact with people, and they moved out of my way so it was obvious that they could see me. And then I walked up to a newspaper stand, and I could look at the newspaper, and I could see the date was 6 months in the future. And there are other things that I've seen about, especially lately, some of the earlier ones, I don't give it much power because not all of it was very good at all. Especially, there is one timeline that came out of 2016 where Hillary Clinton won the presidency, and within a year and a half they had gone through World War III with atomic World War III.
You jumped there? You saw that?
Yeah, and I'm sure glad I'm not in that timeline, because that created a little mess.
Oh my gosh. Then what is this timeline? It feels like World War III right now.
Yeah, it is, but it's not a shooting one yet.
Oh, yet. Oh gosh. Okay, take me 6 months. Do I want to look 6 months into the future with this device?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it good?
Okay, I had enough vision, a look at the future, to know I am not worried about the future at all. It's going to be good in the end. There will be, from what I saw, there will be a time, maybe a month, maybe a couple of months, where nothing works. It's going to be a little hard, but after that, things will come together, because Congress as we know it will go away.
Oh, yes.
There will be a new resource management system that is put together on the basis of the constitutional principles, except for the corrupt band of thieves in Washington will be gone.
That sounds great.
Because
I'm there for
people will get to the point where they realize what they have done, and it'll be an open season on them, and they will go away.
Wow. It's a little vague, but it's also not. It's pretty, I mean, what do we have to, is there anything we have to do to keep creating this reality? I know our minds are kind of responsible for it, right?
It is not just us anymore. Every human being on Earth wants better things. And the people of Earth now is creating this mastermind about wanting better things. They're still kind of confused and keep voting for the corrupt band of thieves in government, but they want better things, and that force of that thought is becoming stronger than the belief in the thieves.
Yes.
So I think what is going to happen here, that the global society will change according to the mastermind of everybody. And we're doing our part on that on Sundays. And we're not just the only one. There's a lot of groups, church groups, and people that is praying for things. And when you're sitting in a church in prayer for one specific thing, you create a mastermind.
Yes.
And that is when two or more minds are united in harmony, they create a third mind, which has the potential mind power of the two or more of them multiplied by each other. So if 1,000 people get together and think about one specific thing and give intention to it, vivid, colorful images, put emotion in it, and love it into existence, now you got the mind power of 1,000,000 minds, and that is powerful.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. It makes me almost wonder what would happen if you infused. I mean, I don't know what the answer is to this, and we haven't necessarily gone into all the specifics of the machine individually with you yet. But is there a world to mixed group mind with Stephen Gibbs' device? What would happen?
I have no idea.
Is that too risky, we think? I don't know. I mean,
if everybody in a mastermind had a device like that strapped on, that's a totally new thought. I have never given it any energy, and amazing things could happen.
yeah. Well, I want to know more about the amazing things that you've had. Okay, so you've gone 6 months into the future. Can you explain more? Because I think this is where my confusion of what the device does is. Does that mean that it's just you as you are actually there? Are you? I mean, you said you were walking through, but is it like an astral you? Could you bump into yourself in the future? Like, what are the parameters of this specific time travel?
Every time that I have made it work, I've been by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have had other people around. We did some experiments with that back in Omaha when we had other people around, and nothing happened because I think there's too much mental interference.
Yeah.
And the same thing when BBC television came over and did a TV documentary with Michio Kaku and Green and myself. And we went down to New Orleans and they created that documentary, and I demonstrated the device in the hotel room, and they took that back to BBC and they showed that to 1 billion people around the world, in every corner of the world that was English speaking. And I know they were expecting things to happen, but there was about 8 people in the room with cameras focused on me, and nothing happened. And that, I didn't really expect that, but I think they did.
Right.
Yeah, so, but not all of the things that I've seen in the past have happened, because I've learned a lot about how time travel works and how existence work. And that is that there's more than one timeline, and we are in more than one of them. When I was back doing the TV shows in Tucson, hosting and producing 2 TV shows for 6 years, what we did most of was exposing government corruption. That's where my mind was. The damn government, And that doesn't solve anything necessarily. You educate a lot of people, but it really didn't do all that much. And what I also found is that we can change our reality by the way we think. So now, if I had an occurrence where I totally switched, I forgot about all the government corruption and all the stuff that goes with it, and I turned into a spiritual path. Now I created a new timeline for myself where all that stuff that happens in that other timeline does not show up in my timeline. Because I have good things in it, because I put it there. I thought it into existence, placed it into the quantum existence. It's sitting there as potentials for creation, physical creations later. All I have to do is to go there and bring it home. And there's still a physical process of making it show up in your life. So it's not that you snap your finger and it is right there. Even though that may be possible. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So are we then? I mean, let's say say I want to visit 2070. Um, am I actually going to be there exploring the planet? How long do I get to stay there? Like what? How? Yeah, I'm a little lost there. I want you to kind of paint the picture more for me.
I there's a safety valve in the universe.
Hmm.
That safety valve is that if you go to a place where you no longer want to be, you can quickly think yourself out of there. And the same thing with astral travel. If you go to a place where you feel fear, you snap back in the body. That's your safety valve.
Yeah.
And here is the same thing. And if you find yourself in danger out there and you feel the fear, you can come back. Or you will come back. Most likely, I think there's that safety valve did not work for that young man that disappeared.
Yeah.
Because it may have been because he didn't have the device anymore and he did not believe that it could happen without the device. And I don't know. That's just my thought.
Yeah. So then let me go back to the 6 months in the future where you're looking at the newspaper, you see you're there. Do you spend a lot of time there, or do you immediately go, okay, I'm ready to go home? And then boom, you're back where you are, the thing's wrapped around you. Like how did the transition in and out of where you are work in your experience with this?
It's just like anything else. You walk down the street, you look at something, and you read a little bit, and then you just walk on and do something different. And now, time travel devices in the future are a little more accurate and more dependable.
Oh, tell me about that.
The reason I'm saying that is because it will be recognized. In a few years from now, it will be recognized that time travel is possible, but it will be made illegal for people to engage in it. China has just passed a law 2 years ago that makes time travel illegal.
Yeah, what? Why?
Yeah. Why would they do that if everybody knows it's not possible?
Yeah, that is super strange.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
And the reason I'm saying that time travel devices in the future is more accurate is because there is an incident where there is a guy named Andrew Carlsen. He was in New York. He was playing the stock market. And he started out with $800. In about a couple of weeks, he accumulated $350 million from that. And the regulators, they started looking at this and said, wait a minute, that's not possible. So they came and arrested him for insiders trading. He was hauled in the court in front of the judge, and the judge said, who helped you? And I said, nobody. I just knew what was going to happen because I'm a time traveler from
oh my gosh,
2253 or something like that, I think it was. And the judge, of course, if it wasn't for his ears, his smile would probably go all the way around. He didn't believe a word of that. So he threw him in jail. And the guy, he explained that I watched the history of the companies that made phenomenal gains in the stock market. And I went back in time and played those companies. And of course, that didn't go over too well in the courtroom. So they put him in jail and they put $1 million bail on him.
Oh, wow.
I think within a day or two, a guy came in with cash and paid off the bail, and they both left, and they have never been seen since.
What?
The thing about this guy, Andrew Carlsen, is that when they checked him out, he he did not exist. He had no social security number, no driver's license, no licenses whatsoever. He did not exist in any public record anywhere. That's pretty impossible. No birth records, no nothing. They run him through all kinds of different computers and they couldn't find him.
Wow.
So if you want to check him out, you could do that. I think I wrote down, he is in, I think it was 2003. Google Andrew Carl Seen Time Traveler, and you can read the whole story. Now, some people say that, oh, this was all made up. Yeah, right. I did a little more digging, and I found out that there's a police record. You can read about it. You can read about it. And he was put in jail in Rikers Island in New York, so you can check on it. There is a police record.
I've never heard that one before. That is, wow. There's a lot out there. A lot of interesting stuff about this guy. A lot of you can definitely read about him. Holy moly! I mean, I've heard similar stories about. Wasn't there a story about? Well, I mean, there was a legend of a story about a guy in Japan, maybe, and they went to the top of the hotel room, and then they opened the door, and he was gone. Yeah. Yep. I mean, there are all these stories about this stuff. I'm curious what the difference is. I mean, do you think it is versions of the Stephen Gibbs device made into a machine? Is it different technology that we don't know about that these time machines are going to become? I mean, what is your intel telling you about where the time travel of the future, these machines are actually going to be created from the source?
Yeah, I think they're perfecting it. They probably already have, but we just don't know about it. Yeah. I think they're perfecting it so it becomes very accurate. And you can find details like Andrew Carl Seen did. And the guy in Japan, he had a passport from a country that doesn't exist.
Right.
And, and that, sends up flags. And and he was from a country that is modern day now. Andorra in Europe. And he had no machinery with him. He was very confused. Why don't you understand? He did not know he was a time traveler at the time he showed up at the airport.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want to look at the machine, I could...
yeah, let's do it. Let's. This crowd is ready to see this device. I'd love to see it.
Okay, I will. I'm going to show you the components in different, because it's a little bulky. Here is an electromagnet that is plugged into the black box you're going to see later on. This electromagnet is very strong. And I would recommend for anybody that has one of these, don't even put it close to the computer screen, because it will go blank on you and you never will be able to recover it.
Oh, wow.
And you put that against your solar plexus, right where the sternum is, I was told. And then you hold it there as you go into the meditative state, because now you have an electric circuit. It's plugged in the wall, coming into the black box you're going to see. And then it goes from there through the time coil and into this electromagnet.
Wow.
Now let me show you the rest. Okay.
I gotta get one of these. I really do. Look, yeah, this is awesome. What is this?
And this is the time coil that goes around your head right here, right where the third eye would be.
Yeah.
And you put that on, and there's no big secrets about that one. Here is the black box.
Oh, there we go.
Now, there is a well here, which is not really used for anything in regard to time travel. Can also be used as a radionic computer. You can take somebody's blood sample or hair sample, put it in the well, and tune it, and you can heal them at a distance. So he built that one into it also. Here is the on and off button. When you you plug it in the wall. There's a cord here. And plug it in the wall, turn it on, and then you turn on the sticker plate down here and the time coil.
Wow.
Now you got two knobs here. You will have to fine-tune the device to your frequency. The combination of all parts of your body has a resultant frequency. Now, the liver have one frequency, heart have another frequency, but add all the parts of your body together, it shows up as one frequency, and that's the one you want to tune to, because you want the whole body to go. Don't leave the liver behind, So,
yeah.
So I'm just joking about that. That wouldn't happen. But then you start tuning. Then turn the knob just a little bit, and you rub the sticker plate. This is just like a radionic computer. Where you rub the sticker plate until your fingers stick. That's where you want to keep the tuning. If you turn it a little bit, rub. If it doesn't stick, you turn a little more, rub it. Don't stick, turn a little more. Keep turning it until your fingers stick. And it will stick.
Wow.
Then you turn the other one until it sticks. Now you have tuned it to your body's and mind's frequency. Now, hold the magnet at your solar plexus. Sit there with a time coil around here. Go into meditation and wait. If anything happens, you will know it.
Yeah.
If anything doesn't happen, yeah, I guess you'll know that too.
Right.
So this is what it looks like, and it is this thick. Oh, what's it say here? Yeah, there we go. Here are the plugs for the different things that you plug into it, like the time coil and the electromagnet.
This is a remarkable thing. Thank you for showing us. This is such a cool contraption.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here going, Aage, I don't know. It's such a broad question, though I wonder if you have an explanation for it. I now know literally what buttons you press. I now know the procedure for getting it started. For somebody that is just going, yeah, but how does it work? How does it actually, what is it tuning into? Is it projecting your consciousness? Like, do you have an explanation for telling someone, hey, this is how this device causes you to experience time travel, of all things?
Well, that's something that is easier to understand by someone that has studied quantum mechanics a little bit. So they have a full understanding that everything and everybody is connected. Also that the superposition, that's a concept within quantum mechanics where everything you have thought, seen, visualized, imagined, and intended for creates a bubble of consciousness that is placed into the quantum as a memory bubble. Anytime you go back and think about the same thing, you attach that bubble.
Right.
And you can bring that bubble home, and it can strengthen what you're thinking about to create physical creations around you.
Yeah.
Now we do the same thing here. Before you even lift this thing up, you decide, where do I want to go? What do I want to see? Now that is created. And this machine helped you to go into the quantum and retrieve this and create that path for you. Now, it gets complicated.
Yeah, of course.
But this is my understanding of it. And remember now, this is my interpretation of what's happening. I've studied quantum mechanics quite a bit, and I understand how it could be. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is that way. There may be shortcuts where the machine does it on its own. I don't know.
Do you think Stephen Gibbs knew?
I don't know.
Interesting.
He wasn't into quantum mechanics. His helper were angels and
right.
people like that.
This is why we got to get this panel together, because I'm curious. I'm sure people have different pieces of this. But no, this is a cool device. One of the other thoughts that came to me, and I know I don't want this to necessarily go down this rabbit hole, because I'm sure you have thoughts on the broader implications of this, but like, to me it makes sense that the technology would be getting better in this AI revolution, because we have these smart beds that are adjusting body levels, that are measuring these things. I imagine people could build, or they already have, a version of that device that is automatically adjusting the knobs for you based on where you are, so you don't have to do that anymore. And once that happens, well, I mean, that just takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, because there are radionic computers right now that is totally automatic.
Yes.
And I used to have a Mark 12 radionic computer. There was some, I forget how many knobs. It was about, I don't know, 28, 32 or something knobs on it, which you had to, if you tuned them all, that thing was very effective. But that one was built by Copen Labs in England. And if you are going to consider getting a radionic computer, they are the best.
What do you do with a radionic computer?
You can, one of the things we did was we created vitamin C out of just regular water.
What?
We put vitamin C in the well on the computer.
Yeah.
Put a glass on the table next to it. And we transferred the vitamin C to the glass. So, and we had it tested, because there was distilled, either, I don't know, it may have been reversed osmosis water, but I think it was distilled water in the glass. And then we put vitamin C in the well, transferred that to the glass, and then we had the glass tested, and it came back as vitamin C water.
Wow.
So technically, we didn't have to buy vitamins anymore. But another thing you can do is that you can heal people at a distance. We were able to knock out somebody's cold in a matter of hours, and back pains and things. We tried, and it worked, but it didn't work all the time.
Yeah.
There were times when we couldn't get anything done.
Well, and this is, I mean, look, it's the age of testing. I mean, with quantum computers, imagine combining a quantum computer with the radionics machine. That is the free energy that people have been talking about. But I also know that there's kind of a danger with the AI side of things too, of like, well, what if it's not? What if it's dark power that emerges as a result of all these machines and the algorithm. Like, where could it create free energy and these resources, and where could it go wrong? I don't know if you have thoughts on that briefly. It could be a whole nother 3 hours, but to me, I definitely think it could take Steve Gibbs' work and bring it to, as I said, a revolutionary place.
Yeah, and both the dark side and the light is a potential
That's
sitting
true.
sitting right in that quantum computer.
Yeah.
There is a danger that must not be overlooked, because there are civilizations in space, on planets, where there were humanoids, and they started creating robots.
Mm-hmm.
And the robots did away with the humanoids, so now all inhabitants of that planet are robotic.
Oh, no.
So the question is, are we going to be one of those? We will, if they don't curtail the capabilities of the robotic creations that they do right now. If robots ever get to the point where they have access to resources and figure out how to repair themselves without human help, we're done for.
Oh, God. Ay, ay, ay. I know, I wish people poured billions of dollars into this device and not necessarily how to code software without thinking about it. It would be feels like a better use of resources, because this device at the very least is also about developing the mind. And I know that's kind of the greatest weapon that a lot of the elites fear, that we have. If we could develop our minds to the same level you could develop a chatbot, well, then that means we have power, and their agenda is no longer relevant. And I know you work on that. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, but you can't do that. There's no money in it.
Right.
Yeah. It's much more profitable to send about 150 billion over to a country in the Eastern Europe, so they can get about 75 billion in kickbacks. And now, of course, they're going to send it to some other country in the Middle East. Much more profitable, because, you get the kickbacks. It goes right into their political re-election campaign, where all and everything disappears.
Yeah. Oh, man, there's a lot more here. No, this has been a very interesting conversation. I very much appreciate you coming on. It has definitely opened my mind. Two things I thought of before we go. I wanna get back to the power of the mind for a second. Some people I've heard talk about meditating on sacred geometry as a way of going to the astral plane. And I've even heard people call that Merkaba. They call it a time travel device. Do you think that would either... I'm curious if you've ever played with that with this machine, and what would happen then, because that to me is like time travel to the 10th degree if you had the Merkaba in your mind and that active. I mean, that to me seems very dangerous, or it could work.
Yeah, there are people talking about that, and people have been doing it, and I have something here that may be of interest to some people. If they want to write down a website, I can tell you how you can get some of the sigils that may be able to do things like that.
Yeah.
And the website is ourspirit.com. There are some of the sigils that I give these away, and you can go to their website, you can download this, put it on a paper where you can have peel-offs, and then put it on everything around you and meditate on it. This particular one will interact. Put your finger in the middle of it, like like this. Left finger, by the way, left index finger, and go into a meditative state and visualize what you want to happen. This one has been proven to be effective by the people that have the website.
Yeah. Very cool. Final question for you before we go. You've been talking about this for so long. You've been going on these different shows. What do you think for people that don't necessarily have access to this device, or, aren't necessarily sure about how it could work for time travel? Is there anything you want people to walk away with now that they know a little bit more that experiences like this are possible and that this technology had been developed? What would be your thing for people to hold on to in all of this?
Well, I would say, first of all, Stephen Gibbs, wherever he went after he dropped the body, I'm sure he's not making these anymore. So they're hard to get a hold of, unless, like you said before the show, that you have seen them.
I've seen them on eBay. Yeah.
eBay, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe you can find one, but you don't need a device. In this book, second to the last chapter, I think it is, I explain how you can do it by consciousness. Spiritual science, higher conscious thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness. There's a whole chapter in there on time travel, and I talk about how to do it and how to guard yourself so nothing negative is going to happen to you. And besides that, it talks about how to create your future and how to create a new timeline. So if you have things in your timeline right now, you don't like it at all, create a new one.
Yes.
Where all this crap that you have here goes away. There is simple ways to do that. In fact, I also talk about how you can go back and repair the past. If there are things that happened in the past, it's really very simple. You can go back and alter the past. Now, you don't alter this timeline, because this timeline is based on energy. Energy does not go away. It will stay, it will be there. But when you go back before something happened that you didn't like in the past, then you can create a new timeline and bypass it. So there, I explain how to straighten out the life that you don't like and create a new one that is setting up a new timeline with good things in it.
Wonderful. Aage, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. This has been awesome. Everybody check out Aage Nost's book, Spiritual Science. We'll link to it, as well as you can catch him on Broadcast Team Alpha, and we've linked to that. It's a YouTube channel, and he broadcasts on Facebook, and great stuff happening there, as well as you've got a lot going on. You've got the regular mastermind sessions with hypnotherapist Nori Love, really talking about the stuff we've done earlier on the show, where you were talking about bringing consciousness together in a way that makes an impact on the world. I mean, it's I've always appreciated you being so generous with your time and wealth of knowledge. And this was a great, I would say, introductions to the legacy of Stephen Gibbs and time travel. Yeah, so, thank you so much for coming on.
One more thing what you just said here, I got to elaborate on, and that is Nori Love. She's a hypnotherapist, and I've been doing hypnosis for over 50 years, but I've never seen anybody do what she does. She puts somebody under hypnosis, take them forward in time to meet themselves, to have a discussion with themselves, and have maybe advice from their future self about what to do now to make things work better. Because likelihood is that you are a little more advanced in your thinking in the future, more spiritual, and maybe you know what could have gone wrong now. So you can come back and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it the other way that did work.
Yes.
So check with Nori Love on that one, because she's doing something really interesting here.
That's very cool. And you can imagine, I mean, if that's what she's doing, you put your mind and hers together. The conversations that you have on Broadcast Team Alpha are always just riveting, and both perspectives add so much. So, Aage, hey, again, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And I definitely look forward to doing that panel at some point in the future and having you on again. Aage Nost. Check him out. Broadcast Team Alpha. Thanks so much for coming on the show. If you also want to see what this looks like, our YouTube handle is @OpenLoops. That's right. @OpenLoops. To find this episode, it's in the live section on YouTube. You can see what it looks like for yourself. Though, from what I understand, these type of things aren't that far away from us. I mean, I once heard there was this guy named Steve, another guy, who also was very invested in creating things that could move your consciousness to other places, distort time, vanish you away, all while sitting at the comfort of the same dining table. Make sure you get the new iOS update. Happy Thanksgiving.